one to avenge them. Me! Me! I'm going to defeat you!
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Zarkater. Today, we're going to be making a Warframe tier list, alright? But here's the deal, okay? I have not premeditated this video. I have not scripted anything. I've not made the tier list yet. I haven't had any plans or thoughts in terms of where any frame is going. This is just purely going to be off the top of my head, and the reason for this video is because there is a lot of, let's call it misinformation or opinions stated as facts in Warframe, in terms of, oh my god, Banshee is so good, she does so much damage, she can level all of your weapons and get you so much focus, at the same time as Banshee's fucking dog shit, and her design philosophy is actively being suppressed by the developers with each fucking update and gameplay change. There's just one example. I want to make this tier list just in the spirit of showing you that a tier list in Warframe doesn't matter insofar as what Warframes you should play, or how you should feel about Warframes, or if you see this Warframe in your squad, get out of there, or anything like that. The point of a tier list in a game like Warframe, and, you know, other games, like, let's say, if I made a tier list on the weapon types in Monster Hunter, this would be the exact same philosophy. It's not so much, you know, this Warframe's better than this Warframe, therefore use this Warframe over that Warframe. It's just, it's more of, you know, how prevalent is this Warframe in the meta, and what the meta is shifts constantly. You know, Warframes like, where is he at? Warframes like Frost. I'm looking for him. There he is. Like Frost here. Like, reasons why Frost in 2013 when the game first came out, you know, Frost was fucking S tier, had a bubble that could defend anything, you know? He can still absolutely do that. Frost has not changed in these 7 years. But Frost currently is in D tier, so I guess that's our first placement. The reason Frost is so bad is not because he got worse, and also not because there's been power creep. The reason Frost is bad is because what he does doesn't fucking matter that much. The concept of a design or a defense mission in Warframe has actually become much less important with the inclusion of the Plains of Eidolon, Fortuna, the Heart of Deimos, Orphix Venom, Scarlet Spear, Railjack, you know, the ESO, Sorties, everything in this game that isn't just stand around a thing and make sure it doesn't get hit too much for 20 minutes. That's become such a small part of Warframe, that Frost has become such a small part of Warframe. So anyway, so with that, we're going to kind of rename these tiers. How about D tier should be needs, rework. These are straight up the Warframes where, again, I'm not going to tell you not to play these Warframes. I'm not going to tell you to hate these Warframes or feel any type of way. You feel how you want to feel about Warframes individually. I'm just saying, don't go around telling people, oh man, Frost is the best Warframe ever. Because if you do, then, you know, newer players who don't know that, you know, Rhino exists to do everything Frost does better, they're going to be like, oh, well, I'll just get Frost, and then, you know, they won't find out that other frames are better, or they'll tell even more people that, oh yeah, this guy told me Frost is great, therefore Frost must be great. And eventually it's going to get back to DE themselves, and DE is going to be like, oh, well, I guess Frost is great. We don't have to buff him. Conversely, if you take a Warframe that's really, really good, let's take Korra, for example. Korra was an S tier maybe 6 months ago. And people really, really liked talking about how good Korra was. She's now here, you know? And again, these aren't objective placements. This is just off the top of my head. This is where I feel Korra is after these nerfs. The actual placement of the Warframes on this tier list don't matter for the purposes of this video. I'm just trying to tell you, hey, you know, there is a level of objectivity in the meta of this game in terms of, fucking Nyx isn't going to do so well against Profit Taker, right? You'd be able to sit there and not take damage with her 4, but what the fuck are you going to do to Profit Taker as Nyx compared to Chroma, So that's the point. Anyway, so we have Korra and Frost. Let's just start going down the list here. Ashe. Let's put him in B. Ashe is he's been getting so many little things. I think Ashe is the new Titania, where, forget Titania here. Titania is probably like top of A tier. Titania used to be dog shit, needed a rework, but they just kept giving her all these different augments and, little, like, stealth buffs to her useless abilities, and now they just do all this different shit. And at some point, it all just culminated into, oops, it's just a good Warframe by force now. Titania's abilities still kind of suck ass, but with all the little things that each of her abilities do in tandem, it just all adds up to just like a mathematically good Warframe. And Ashe is on the way to that exact same thing. Ashe was good, back when stealth was an important thing in Warframe, back when the original spy missions existed. But now, if you need stealth plus damage, you have Loki, you have Ivara, you have fucking... you have Rhino, you have Excalibur, if you want to blind the enemies, which is the same as stealthing. And Ashe kind of fell by the wayside. But he's been getting all these little things. His 4 is getting buffed so that you don't have to mark enemies 3 times. He's got his auto kill augments with daggers and stuff. He's got Helminth abilities to help him out with his 2. He has armor stripping on his 1, which isn't as important as many people say, but that's for another video. So Ashe, with a couple more changes, I think he'll be right up there with Titania. For now, he's in B tier. Next we have Atlas. Atlas is in a kind of a weird spot where, realistically, he's probably up in C tier, but he's just he needs help anyway. I'm definitely going to put him above Frost. But, yeah, I think Atlas will just round out the top of this needs a rework tier. Because Atlas isn't bad. He has very high... I don't want to say very high defense. He's got high defense, but... for how much damage he does, he's pretty good. But he's a squishy tank. He has a very low cap on his passive ability. And his passive ability is the thing that keeps him alive. Unless you want to go with Helminth abilities. And, again, for the purposes of this tier list, Helminth ability is it's a case-by-case basis how much a specific Helminth ability helps each Warframe. Like, does putting Larva on Protea's 4... Where's Protea? Does putting Larva on Protea's 4 make her better? Yes. Does that affect her tier? Yes. But at the same time, does putting whatever Wisp's 3 is called on Garuda, does that make her better? Yes. Does that affect her ranking? No. And we'll get to that. I guess we could talk about it right now. So the reason Protea is affected by Larva or any Helminth ability is because she's already just that good that, the Larva really doesn't help her out too much. It really just helps her group enemies together for the purposes of using her 2 and for using arc guns. And the reason Protea is the best Warframe at using arc guns is because the ammo that drops out of Protea's 3 can work as arc gun ammo. So you equip a Mozzolon, you use Larva, you press 2, if somehow the enemies aren't dead, you shoot a fucking Mozzolon at them. If they're not dead then, you've modded something wrong. So Protea is definitely an S tier Warframe right now. Without Larva, she's still there, but she would probably be like 1 place lower, once this whole thing is said and done. But the reason Garuda does not go anywhere because of her Breach Surge on Helminth is just because either way, Garuda... What Breach Surge does for Garuda is it gives her a lot more damage, but damage isn't what Garuda needs, right? Garuda is very squishy. Her entire design philosophy as a Warframe is use your 1 to jump into the middle of a big crowd of enemies that can one-shot you to get a shield that only works in, a 45-degree cone in front of you. And doesn't account for her toes either. So that's why more damage on Garuda doesn't matter. You're going to die. Now, obviously, there are skilled Warframe players that, can use Garuda in a survival for 6 hours and don't die, but that doesn't the skill of the player using the Warframe. I can probably solo Tridalon with Zephyr if I really wanted to. The point is, I don't fucking want to do that, right? So let's put Zephyr. Where does Zephyr go? I think Zephyr goes in C. She's getting a rework soon, and but for now she's in C just because she has a good locomotion ability and a good tanking ability, and that goes a long way in Warframe. I'll put her up here even. That goes a long way, but she has 2.5 really useless abilities, and she's getting reworked, so it's not worth harping on. That's kind of where Zephyr goes. I personally love Zephyr. I use her. I think my usage stats, I think Zephyr's like my 6th or 7th most used Warframe, so she's pretty good, honestly. Next, let's do Baruch. Baruch definitely goes in S tier. I think Baruch is kind of on the bottom of S tier, just because the thing about Baruch is he needs high-level enemies to have a job. His 4, when you put a lot of fucking mods and forma and effort into it, can outdamage a melee weapon in a damage to range ratio, right? Like, it's pretty much old Adder Axe. It's pretty good, but in a situation where most of the game outside of the steel path, you can kill anything in one shot with a fucking unmodded like Reaper Prime, right? That doesn't matter. So the range becomes the only thing that Baruch's 4 has going for it, and Baruch's pretty tanky as well, but you can use Helmut's abilities to make him even tankier, and Baruch's pretty alright outside of his 4. But with his 4, the damage it does is only really useful in the steel path because it takes a lot of work to get into that damage, right? You have to build up combo with a melee weapon. You have to build up his restraint bar. You have to go into the 4, which is like a pretty long animation, and you don't want to put natural talent on a Warframe. That sucks ass. And you kill enemies, and you have to make sure your combo counter doesn't reset. And if you want to be more safe about that, you have to equip Naramon, and then you're having energy problems. Baruch's just a really difficult Warframe to upkeep. But if you can handle it, he really does shine only when you would ever need him to, which is rare. But, in those cases, Baruch definitely gets jobs done. So he's pretty good. Next up, we have Ember. Where does Ember go? I would be hard pressed to put her anywhere below B, I think. Let's put her a little bit above Ash. Ember's pretty good. She's also getting, I don't know if she's getting a rework. I heard she was getting a deluxe skin soon. So Ember's going to be getting some pretty cool skins along with other Warframes that I like, that we'll get into a little bit later. Along with Zephyr, actually, too. Ember she got a rework, I don't know, like last year or something. Her whole thing is that she does fire damage, obviously, but she does it in a very weird way, where you activate her 2, right, and her 2 gives you damage reduction that goes up to 90% from 50% over time. And you can speed that up by using her 4, which is a big supernova that hits all enemies on the screen within Ember's line of sight, and does pretty good damage, but you mainly want to do it for the armor strip, and it'll kill things up to like level 80, which is pretty respectable, and it'll strip armor so you can kill those things that didn't die with a melee weapon, which is fine. And then you can slow down the building up of her damage reduction with her 3, which is just a big fire blast that also does fire damage, and fire damage also strips armor. And that's not bad either. Also knocks down some enemies, that's pretty good. Why would you want to slow down the buildup on her CC, or on her damage reduction? Because when it reaches 90%, it caps out, and you start hemorrhaging energy like you're in Valkyr's 4. And it's weird, because that means you are being punished for using her kit in the correct way. So you have to use your 3 a lot. You have to spend a lot of energy to prevent yourself from losing energy, which it's super fucking weird, which is the reason she's not like S tier. But, you know, I'll even put her in A tier, just like on the bottom of A tier. Like Ember's great. She's just really weirdly designed, but, you know, not a bad Warframe at all. Moving right along, we have Equinox. Yeah, I think Equinox is a hard B. Does she go below Ash? I think I'll put her below Ash. Not far below Ash. But Equinox's whole thing is that you have your 4, and that's about it. So Equinox actually has eight abilities. Maybe 2 of them are useful. She has, you know, her day form and her night form, obviously. She has the sleep ability, I think that's her night form. And, you know, that's good for Adaro for focus farming, or in Railjack for intrinsic farming. And then she has her day forms 4, which will create a large AoE of slash damage, and slash damage is pretty good, but it's very low damage. But all of the damage done by you and your allies to enemies within that AoE while the ability is active is stored up in like a supernova-like bomb that you can then tap for again to explode and deal all that damage back to the enemies again. That's super good in ESL, in extermination, even in, you know, any kind of defense that Frost would like to be in. It's pretty good. The only thing is that, you know, Equinox is also pretty squishy. She does have healing in her night form, but if you're going to night form, it means you're switching out of day form, and you don't have that 4 anymore. And so Equinox is kind of in a, you know, a rough spot. I don't think she needs any significant changes outside of, you know, I don't know, make her fucking 3 do something at all, right? Like her 3, it does stuff, but it's relatively insignificant compared to when you just use her 4. But Equinox isn't bad, you know. B tier is where she sits. I think B tier is like the baseline. You know, the Warframe doesn't need necessarily to be better, but, you know, they're not the worst, obviously. Not to say that C tier is the worst either, but needs a rework is probably bad, but not, you know, obviously, like I said, I could solo Tridolons with Frost, with Bubble. You know, if I just had a lot of operator focused nodes and really good amp and everything, I could definitely. But I'm not fucking going to, is the thing. So next we have Excalibur, Umbra specifically. Let's put him on the bottom of A tier. The reason for that is because he's kind of, Excalibur is one such example of power creep, because you know, he used to be pretty bad. He had fucking super jump, right? That meme ass ability back, we had like super jump as well as the bullet jump, which went higher and farther and didn't cost energy. I think there was a little bit of a time where before his rework we had both of those things, and it was so fucking funny. But yeah, now he got a rework and he's pretty solid. You know, he's got his radial blind, which is his absolutely best ability. There's big AoE, all of the enemies are blinded, can't attack, can't move, and take like a billion stealth multiplier bonus damage. It's great. And it comes out faster with Excalibur Umbra than it does with regular Excalibur, which is very nice. It's a very good reason to you know, switch to Umbra after you do the sacrifice and get him. But Excalibur also has his 4, which, you know, Exalted Blade, we all know what it is. You know, the reason he's not so super high up is just because, you know, again, he's a little bit squishy. He has the damage is absolutely there. The CC is there to make sure he can do that damage, but, you know, if a stray bombard sees him at the corner of his eye, oops, you know, you're not going to last very long in like, I don't know, the Steel Path, probably. I mean, obviously, again, you could, but don't. Like, for yourself, don't do that. So, moving right along, we have Gara, definitely S tier. I would put her above Baruch, yep. So Gara, you know, we all know what she does. She has infinite tick damage on her 2 that you can build up with her 4, and then her 4 refreshes her 2, and you use her 1 to pop her 4 so you can keep spamming the 4. As long as you've got energy, Gara just keeps going, and Gara does everything Frost can do way better. So that's why Frost definitely needs a new job. Gara can also do everything Frost does, outside of defense. In terms of, Gara just has incredible damage. She has a sort of, her passive is like a pseudo Excalibur Radial Blind, which is very nice. And she has a lot of CC. Otherwise, the only thing is that her 3's useless, but hey, you can put a fucking helmet ability on that if you wanted, right? No problem. Gauss. Let's put Gauss, my man's Gauss, Gauss even, in A tier, I guess. Does he go above Titania? Yeah. I think Titania and Ember are pretty even. So Gauss, obviously he goes fast. He's the best Warframe to use with melee weapons, and turns out melee weapons are the best all-around form of damage to be done in this game. So fucking automatically Gauss is great, and he's also incredibly tanky with his 2 and his 4. And his 3 does a lot of armor stripping, but you can also just replace it with a helmet ability like I have to make him a little bit more tanky. But that's really just an opinionated thing. Gauss is he's a great example of play how you want to play with him. You can, the helmet system really shines on Gauss and Protea and, even Garuda. But anyway, next we have Grendel. Let's put Grendel. Let's put him in the bottom of A. I think Grendel is great. But honestly, this is a rare example of a Warframe that is so fucking ugly to look at, especially moving at the speed of a Warframe, that it might actually affect his tier. Not really, not honestly. I'm joking, but if this was a fashion tier list, Grendel would be down there. That's all I'm saying. But Grendel's great in terms of gameplay. Yeah, he's pretty much Hydroid, but he can move, and we'll get to Hydroid later in a bit here. But Hydroid plus being able to fully move around and still use your weapons at the same time, that's a nice combo. Also very tanky, he's like one of those super health Warframes. My fucking phone keeps going off in the middle of these recordings. Whatever. Next we have Harrow. Harrow's a solid B tier. Harrow is the ultimate solo Warframe, but you also don't want to solo with him because he is a little bit squishy relatively. So he's in that weird spot again of the B tier like Equinox, where you have to kill enemies in order to buff your allies so that they can kill enemies better. The problem with that is that your allies have already killed all the enemies. So what does Harrow do? I don't know. He fucks off somewhere into a different room, finds one enemy that nobody else has seen yet, and gets his buffs. And it's kind of all he does. He doesn't carry missions like he seems like he's supposed to be able to do. But he's not bad. He definitely does good shit. He's useful for Eidolons. And honestly, Eidolons aren't that big a part of the meta anymore. I think the entire focus system is kind of dried up by this point. But I have a delicious Coca-Cola here. But, even outside of Eidolons, he's very good in general gameplay. Even in Railjack, he's very good. If your Railjack starts going into a breach, whatever it is, when the Railjack's about to die, you can use this 4 to make sure that somebody can, fix up the hull breach, is what they're called. Etc., etc., etc. I can go on all day about, what each of these Warframes can do in each situation in the entire game. That would take too long. Let's just move on to Hildryn. Oh my god, Hildryn. She's a tough one. I think she definitely rides the line between B and C. I'll put her in B just because she has one super, super good ability, which is incredibly useful to put into Helminth to give to other Warframes. So Hildryn obviously is the Shields Warframe. Her 4 gives good CC. Her 1 does damage, but you have other weapons for that don't cost you your shields. she's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. She's just kind of she's like a weapon of a Warframe, you know, kind of weird, just kind of weird champ in all honesty. Anyway, Hydroid, in the same vein that Grendel is Hydroid that can move, Hydroid is a Hydroid that can't move, so he goes down there. I think I even want to put him there because Hydroid is mainly used as a loot Warframe with his, he has a like loot ability and everything. But yeah, great CC, great survivability. But you don't play the game though. When you're using a Hydroid, you just plunk down in a spot where enemies are gonna step, then you suck them up, and then you press 1 sometimes, and then their armor gets stripped and they take some damage and they die and then they pop out of you. And that's all Hydroid does all day. Super boring. Some people like him. I think he's not bad, but he definitely could use a little bit more pizzazz, some pizzazz. I definitely, if you wanna really look at everything in the game, if you want to look at the steel path, yeah, Hydroid can absolutely take on the entire steel path, no problem. Hydroid could fit in fucking A tier probably, even go above like Titania or Ember, but it's just such a cringe kind of way to play the game. It's just gimmicky is the main point. It's so gimmicky that it doesn't matter. I don't think he needs an entire rework, but he needs something to make him, DE has stated their intentions with making a Warframe and their design philosophies around how they want a Warframe to affect the meta, and Hydroid does not do that. And so he kind of goes a little bit lower. Again, not telling you how to think about any Warframe. If you love Hydroid, fucking go play Hydroid, man. If I see a Hydroid in the squad, I'm like, well, he's probably gonna go take a shower during this mission, but at least, hey, we have a big puddle that does a lot of damage sitting there. Not bad, not even a problem. Inaros. So Inaros is usually one of the most played Warframes in the game for obvious reasons. He's just a big old bag of health. Although I think people usually give him too much credit. He's the absolute tankiest Warframe. Nothing can kill him. And it's like, well, half of the Warframes are the same way. And, with enough work and enough forma, there are other Warframes that are tankier than Inaros. So I think he definitely goes in A tier. Let's put him here. Sure, just off the top of my head, like I said. Let's move on to Ivara. Is definitely top of B tier. Put her there. Ivara, has functionally infinite stealth, pretty good CC with her arrows, pretty good damage on her 4. The main thing is just that, not a lot of range in which her abilities work. You're slow when you're invisible. Your navigator wrests control from your Warframe while you're piloting an arrow. And your 4, it's just a Ceranos Prime. Like you just bring a Ceranos Prime to the mission anyway. So it's like, not bad. Not bad. I think her Prime is ugly, but whatever, you have skins for that. It's fine. Let's move on to Lavos. Oops. I think Lavos needs a rework. Let's put him there. He has just come out. I believe he's the latest Warframe before Sevagoth comes out. I'm very excited for Sevagoth, by the way. But Lavos, fucking yeesh. A Warframe based on cooldowns, you say. The last time DE put cooldowns into the game was when you go into ESO and Samaris says, hey, don't... That Warframe that their kit is based on using their 4 a lot, what if we put cooldown on Warframe? And guess what? That fucking sucks ass. And so I think Lavos just needs a few numbers changes, especially in the way of how long his fucking cooldowns are. And more ways to mitigate the cooldowns. I think it's either his 2 or his 3 will shorten the cooldown on his 4, but like by fucking 2 seconds when the cooldown is already like 30 seconds. It's like, yeesh. And even for the amount of cooldowns, he does not do enough damage to warrant waiting and being vulnerable for as long as he is. So I think Lavos is... he's not as bad as Zaku was on release. We'll get to Zaku. But he definitely needs some help. He's definitely down there with Frost and Atlas. Let's move on to Limbo. Limbo was definitely S tier at some point. But he was so good even at a certain mission type called mobile defense that in Scarlet Spear they said, oh shit, we made a mission suck ass because we didn't think about the tools that the players have. What if instead of designing a gameplay loop that was fun, let's make it not only not any more fun, but let's make it actively and on purpose less fun by nerfing Limbo, the tool that made it not fun. So Limbo no longer can freeze sentience indefinitely. The sentience will build up a resistance to his time freeze, which totally is not a big deal in terms of the Warframe at large, because you rarely fight sentience in general. But oh boy, just the shit show that Scarlet Spear was through and through. You don't want to, like, I don't know, it's difficult. This is the difficulty. This is why this is so hard to explain. If I were to tell you that Limbo was S tier, then everyone might go being like, oh shit, man, I'm gonna play Limbo. See squads full of 4 Limbos freezing time and doing crime. And if I were to tell you Limbo was needing a rework, you'd have contrarians that are like, fuck you, Zarkator, Limbo's fucking incredible. And then you'll have squads of 4 Limbos stopping time and doing crime. Realistically, he's probably bottom of B tier. He's really great at, anything you need enemies to not hit. Limbo guarantees that doesn't happen. But Gara does that, and Gara does a lot of damage and has way more survivability. And Frost does that, and Frost needs a rework. So what does that tell you about Limbo? Anyway, I think he goes there. Just honestly. Next we have Loki. Yeesh. Loki is another situation like Atlas where Loki's not actually so bad, having 30 seconds of invisibility that you can just instantly refresh as soon as it runs out is nice. But Warframes have 4 abilities. Loki has 1 ability, and so he needs to rework to get those 3 other abilities. If he didn't need a rework so badly, he would probably go like here, but Loki does not do anything anymore. Stealth used to be the king in Warframe because of how stealth multipliers worked, and how often it was that you could even stealth. But with events and railjack and just like the amount of gameplay that D is adding to the game, where enemies are always on high alert, or they're just not strong enough to even warrant utilizing stealth multipliers, and there's so many easier ways to do damage akin to stealth multipliers, such as Excalibur, such as Protea, such as Gauss. Actually playing as Loki has fallen off considerably in the same way as it has with Frost. So yeah, that's where Loki sits. He's still good, but he definitely should be better. Next we have Mag, and Mag is the number 1 most controversial Warframe. I am going to, let's do this. How do I do this? Add a row below. let's make another tier for Mag, because I can't fucking tell you where Mag goes in a tier list. The reason it's on the bottom is purely coincidence. She is not the worst Warframe. She does not need a rework. But she is definitely not a good Warframe. And that's a hot take, apparently, to a lot of people. Obviously, you can love Mag. I love playing as Mag. I play as Mag a lot. But Mag is a very inconsistent Warframe. Her functionality is very spotty. They added a cool hold function to her too, purely out of necessity that, oops, the studio we outsourced our new cinematic intro to made some shit up about what Mag does, so now we have to put that in the game. That is the epitome of the state of Mag. So literally I'm just going to leave her there. I cannot tell you anything about the meta of Mag because everyone gets mad about Mag. So fuck it. I'm literally not even going to approach that shitstorm. So that's where Mag goes. Mesa, S tier, easy. Let's put it right there. Mesa is the epitome of just easy fucking press 4, do damage. Press 2, give damage to allies. Press 3, take less damage. Very simple, very effective Warframe in every situation. Falls off in the steel path, yeah. But again, the steel path, for how important it is in the meta, what do you get from the steel path? You get the Operator Bashamo armor, some cool ephemeras, maybe some Umbra Formas or whatever it is, Aura Formas even, and Kuva. Yeah, it's not really, maybe you do it for a little bit, but I haven't even finished the steel path because there's nothing in it for me. I got all the steel essence I need. I've cleared out Teshin's shop. I think you get some mastery for completing it, but when you hit MR20, it's like you're done with mastery. You don't need to worry about it. I've just been kind of passively gaining mastery as new good weapons come out over the last 3 years. I haven't worried about it. Anyway, Mesa's great. She's super simple, just top tier, great fucking Warframe. Don't change her, don't do anything to her. Mesa's fine. Mirage is a more difficult to use version of Mesa. Let's put her here. No, let's put her here. Mirage is, fucking lags your computer out with a Cyanoid Simulor. I think they nerfed that, but still, Mirage is great. Sure, her one quintuples her melee damage and triples her primary and secondary damage. She has good CC. Her 4 is slow as shit, but the only problem with Mirage is that she has Maces 2 and 3, right? But they're split into 2 different abilities, and you can't control which fucking one is active at one time. With Eclipse. So you're standing in shadow, you get attack, and you're standing in light, you get damage reduction. Or it might be the other way around. It's not even a big deal. I've helmethed that ability away from Mirage long ago. But, the way that the lighting engine works and is constantly changing in Warframe, because Steve loves that lighting. Not to blame Steve, I don't want to incur any wrath against any devs. But it's just you can't control what the hell Mirage is doing. There should be a UI element that just says you're standing in light, you're standing in dark. Alternatively, when you activate Eclipse, it should just snapshot, are you standing in light right now? Are you standing in dark right now? And then that buff of whatever the case was should last for the entire ability and not change when you switch sides. Either of those 2 things will shoot Mirage straight up to here. But for now, she's there. Necros, fucking, I don't know, C for cranberries, because his prime stomach looks like a bunch of cranberries. Necros has fallen off. People say he can be tanky with Shield of Shadows, but you don't use Necros for Shield of Shadows or to tank. You use them to loot with Desecrate, and that's useful for Endo, that's useful for, I don't know, general resource farming at lower levels. But at higher levels, when you have every basic thing that you need, the stuff you're farming for is stuff that Necros can't double. You know, like specific mission drops, like relics or necromech parts and shit like that. Necros is just kind of a gimmick niche Warframe. Definitely not bad, but definitely not, too useful a lot of the time. He's alright. I like Necros. He looks cool. He looks sick as fuck. He's edgy. But I think Sevagoth is pretty much going to replace Necros, at least for me, personally. Fucking, next we have Neja, and Neja is great. Neja is discount Rhino, but as it turns out, when we get to Rhino, you'll see that that's very good. So, a lot of people say that Neja's better than Rhino because he's faster, but he's way less tanky, does way less damage. Neja has to spend an entire ability to get the same damage out of one enemy that Rhino can spend 30 seconds worth of killing enemies getting the same amount of damage out of. And that's really the only thing that makes Neja worse than Rhino. But Neja's fucking great still, obviously. Great damage reduction on the Halo, great CC with his 4, incredibly fast with his 1, does heat damage to strip some armor. Pretty nice Warframe. Nidus. So Nidus is kind of the opposite of Baruch, where he also needs really high level enemies to care about being a Warframe and use any of his abilities, but he also needs so much time to ramp up, so much more time than Baruch does, that it's actually very difficult to play as Nidus. I'm going to put him in B tier. Let's put him, put him above Mirage. I mean, Nidus is a great Warframe, obviously, but there's just not too many situations where you're going to be in a mission long enough for him to actually do the things that he's great at. Especially, I think I would have hoped that Railjack would have been Nidus's time to shine, but they made it even more bite-sized than normal Warframe missions, which isn't a bad thing in terms of Railjack itself, but it's a bad thing for Nidus, so Nidus goes a little bit lower. Next we have Nova, easy S tier. Let's put her above Baruch. Nova is, the titular, explosion Warframe, the atomic Warframe. Fastest Warframe in the game with her 3. Pretty tanky with her 1, although very energy hungry. Great single target damage with her 2. Great multi-target damage with her 4. Simply good Warframe. Next we have Oberon, the titular support Warframe of the game. I'll put him in A tier. Let's put him here. Oberon, makes it so that your team doesn't die if they are not equipped well enough to the point where they might die. So, yeah, Oberon really he patches the holes in whatever you're doing if you're not doing it optimally. So not bad, right? Let's move on to Nyx. Honestly, I don't know if Frost or Nyx is the worst Warframe. Probably Nyx, but it's really difficult. Let's just imagine these two are switching infinitely for the rest of the video because I can't decide which is worse. Anyway, Nyx, so she has invincibility in her 4, except she can't move in the 4 unless you waste a mod slot to be able to move really fucking slowly. So what if you were just Rhino, who can do exactly that but without being slow and then also damage? So don't again, I don't want to say don't use Nyx, but if you're gonna use Nyx, good fucking luck. Next, let's have Octavia, easy S tier, above Baruch also. Octavia is kind of, that sleeper agent. She's the next Prime, so I imagine her popularity might shoot up, but she's, great Warframe. You create songs with her Manticord, and people have carved out the meta of, this song is the best meta song for getting her buffs out of her 3, or doing the most damage with her 1, etc. But honestly, I just put Megalovania and called it a day. Octavia is a great Warframe. Infinite CC, infinite invisibility, damage buffs all around, speed buffs, healing buffs, incredibly large range. Just a great Warframe. She tanks through force, one of the rare Warframes that does that. Next we have Revenant. I'm going to put Revenant at the top of C. I fucking love Revenant. People hate Revenant because he's boring and he's simple. You just hit 2 and it's like, oh, you just are invincible for this amount of hits that you take. And it's like, it's super simple, boring even, but I don't know. I like it. I just think Revenant looks cool. Simple Warframe. He does incredibly high amounts of damage if you can combo his 1 and his 3, but the problem is that takes a long time to do. Again, really only useful in the Steel Path, but Revenant's okay in the Steel Path. His 4 is super energy hungry, the most expensive ability to use in the game. But it does pretty good damage, but like you could, again, just use your weapons. He doesn't really have any weapon damage boosting abilities. He just does a lot of damage with his 1 and his 3 mainly. But anything that's immune to his 1, which turns out a lot of things that you're going to be fighting in meta gameplay are immune to his 1, it doesn't work. He can't, and his 3 will do nothing to him either. So just kind of being designed against in the same vein as Banshee. So eesh. Where did I put Banshee? Oh, we're getting to her right now. Yeah, she goes there. Oops. Get Atlas. Does she go there or there? Let's put her there. Well, let's put her there. Put her there. Yeah, Banshee, I said this at the beginning of the video. She's actively being designed against. She does incredible damage, great CC, incredible for focus farming and affinity farming, but she doesn't fucking work on anything anymore. Every time DE adds something in the game, they're like, wait, can Limbo freeze this forever? Let's nerf Limbo about it. Can Banshee kill this in one fucking shot no matter what with any unmodded fucking Leto? It's immune to her 2. Or her 3, or whatever it even is. Sonar. So Banshee doesn't work. She really should work. If she did work, she would be instant S tier. She's super squishy, but for the fucking numbers that come out of Banshee when her abilities work on a thing, oh my god, absolute S tier. But those numbers don't happen, so she needs to rework. Really a shame. Really a shame. I love Banshee. But next we have Saren. Let's put her below Baruch. Yeah, it's fine. The ESO machine, you need affinity, you need focus, use Saren, go to ESO. Also great for exterminations, great for anything with normal enemies and any boss fights. She has a good healing ability. She has, she gives her melee weapons buffs and stuff like that. Saren's just solid, very solid frame. Next we have Trinity. Trinity is kind of, let's just put her exactly where Oberon is. Imagine, again, these two are equal, completely just switching back and forth. The other support Warframe, the burst healing instead of the healing over time. But the main thing is, Energy Vampire, obviously. Also very useful for Eidolons as much as Oberon is. Where Oberon patches a leak in your team, Trinity, prevents the leak from happening, I guess. You always have enough energy. She can heal you if you really need it. And she keeps the Eidolon lures alive and stuff like that. Outside of that, she's just an EV machine, but turns out energy is so important in this game. It's what makes all Warframes function. Trinity providing so much of that is quite useful. Makes her pretty good. Next we have Valkyr. Valkyr is another, needs a rework. Honestly, she might be like B tier, maybe even above Hildren. But she needs a rework because she has her 4, which does good melee damage. But you know what else does good melee damage? Your melee weapons. And your melee weapons don't cost you an incredible amount of energy akin to that of Revenant's 4. And then what else does Valkyr have? She has a stun ability that stuns some enemies in a small cone in front of you. And she can give you some melee weapon attack speed. That's fine. What if I just had Berserker equipped? So Valkyr boils down to the Berserker mod, what in Warframe form. We should rework her. Next we have Chroma, S tier. Let's put him, yeah, right there is fine. Chroma is the opposite of Banshee, obviously, where Banshee is being designed against, that they won't stop making Chroma necessary. You know, Chroma is the only choice. I don't, like, obviously I can't say that, but if you want to take down Prophet Taker and you don't know the fight in and out like the back of your penis, you're gonna have to use Chroma. You know, same thing with any other huge bosses, the Eidolons. You know, he's just, give my weapons the most damaging damage buff in the game, and give myself the most tanky ability in the game. You know, and then he has a loot ability on his 4, sort of. What his 1 sucks ass. Chroma's pretty good. He's good. I would say he needs to rework, but he's just so good that I can't put him in that tier. So, yeah, Chroma's just the meta Warframe, pretty much. Vauban, I would put him in needs a rework, but he's literally already had a couple of reworks. I'm just gonna put him down here, man. Vauban, again, is another shame. He's super, super fun. Great CC, but no damage. And, you know, he's got fucking Sonic the Hedgehog speed pads. Super fun. Super fun. We're just gonna move on. Volt, instant A tier. Maybe above Excalibur. Sure. That's fine. Volt's got the speed, which is useful. Also buffs your attack speed. Volt's got the 4, which is great CC and also great affinity and focus farming and ESO and stuff like that. He's got his shields, which block all incoming damage for our duration, which is super great, especially for stuff like Eidolons or Prophet Taker, etc. And his 1 sucks, but hey, free slot for a helmet ability if you want to put a helmet ability on him. So Volt's great. Volt's a great Warframe. A little squishy, but you know, you can, if you're good enough at using his 3, really is a skill check, I would say. Wisp, let's you know what, I'm gonna put Volt below Excalibur so people don't choose Volt as their starter, because you absolutely should pick Excalibur as the starter. That's the only reason he's above Volt, for just by the way. Next is Wisp. So Wisp is definitely S tier. Let's put her above Chroma, above Octavia. I think Octavia and Wisp are pretty even. That's just put her there just because I like how Wisp looks more, I guess. But yeah, Wisp is great. Incredible, very strong buffs that she gives to your teammates. Pretty good damage with Breach Surge and her 4, and her 2 makes her invisible. She has even more infinite stealth than Ivara does. It's a very incredibly good Warframe. Just, you know, just her 1 and her 2 is pretty much all she needs, but her 3 and her 4 exist, and they're not bad, so great S tier Warframe. Next is Wukong. Wukong, in the recent dev stream, they released some stats that Wukong is actually like the fucking most popular Warframe, like the most used Warframe in like capture speedruns and stuff like that, and that's very confusing to me because Wukong goes down here. Now, here's a little secret about me. Wukong is my favorite Warframe in the whole game in Warframe history. In his original form, where Defy was all he had, and he was just pretty much invincible with Defy, that was my favorite Warframe, and he was in needs a rework tier. Now he's like, let's put him there. Even. Yeah, that's fine. But Wukong sucks. There was a period of time where they reworked him, and they killed Defy, but then they gave him a really good 1, and a really good 4. And that was great. And he was absolutely S tier. Probably when that was happening, I would put him around where Chroma is, like right there, maybe. But they took that away. I mean, his 1's still there, but all it does really is give you your melee weapon while you're shooting, and your guns while you're swinging a melee weapon. And it's like, yeah, it's alright, I guess. It's, you know, but you don't need it. You never need it, something like that. But his 4 was incredibly strong, and now it's incredibly weak, even weaker than it was pre-rework, and so I don't care. Nobody cares about Wukong. Apparently he's used super often. which I guess is cool. I mean, he's my favorite Warframe. I use him the most, but yeah, he needs some work. Needs more work. Probably needs to rework, but I'll put him up there just for solidarity because he's my boy, man. He's my fucking favorite Warframe. Anyway, next we have Zaku. Zaku on release was the fucking worst Warframe in all of Warframe history, but they gave him pretty much two reworks right in a row, and now he's like B tier probably. Let's put him like above Ash. He has 100% armor strip in a small AOE, but don't build him for that, please. It's not that useful when you can just use his 2 to kill things anyway. And his 4 makes him pretty tanky and also freezes the durations on his short duration abilities. He's got a really fun gameplay loop. He's not incredible by any means, but he does pretty solid damage and is, pretty okay at survivability. Not bad. And last but not least, we have the number 1 Warframe, Rhino. My last YouTube video was the best Warframe, Rhino Prime. Go watch that video for how he works, obviously, but Rhino is the all-around Warframe that just gets shit done. You can use Rhino in place of any other Warframe just fine. Protea, Rhino has his 3 to buff damage. You can also put Larva on Rhino's 4 for the same effect that Protea has. Gara, same thing, infinite damage, just press 3 on Rhino. Just double all of your weapon damage, and if your weapon still can't keep up, that's your weapon's problem, not Rhino's problem. And also Rhino's 3 spreads to all of your teammates, which, the damage being less of a buff than Chroma's, multiply it by 4 because there's 3 other Warframes that get that benefit, so it is better than Chroma's damage. Mesa, high damage again. Rhino, infinite tank, infinite damage. Not infinite, but definitely high enough, too high for any enemy in this entire game to handle. Again, same with Nova, same with Wisp. I mean, Wisp gives attack speed, but Rhino can get that attack speed, Rhino's pretty fast. You can just put Berserker on his melee weapon. The Prime is he has a faster sprint speed than the regular normal version of the Warframe, but not a big deal. If you have normal Rhino, absolutely fine. So anyway, yeah, Rhino is number 1. And again, this entire tier list, every specific placement is pretty opinionated. Sure, you can put Ash up here if you wanted. You could put Wukong needs a rework if you wanted. You could put Limbo in S tier if you wanted. The point is that Warframe is a game of its meta. It's one of those, it's only a single player PvE game. I mean, obviously there's multiplayer elements with the squads and everything, but there's no PvP is the point. It's just, if you try to tell me that Korra is super, super good, she's gonna get nerfed again. Like, the way she is now, she doesn't function. They said they're trying to do a pass on her 1 and fix it up some more. She does incredible damage. I even have the video from like 6 months ago, back when she was S tier, but she's been nerfed so many times since then that she just doesn't function consistently. And for how squishy she is, the fact that her damage does not come out well is a killer. It automatically makes her not function as a Warframe. Yeah, you can still get the same damage numbers as you saw in that video I had 6 months ago, but you're not going to be hitting the 40 enemies in a room, because if there's a fucking little box on the ground, that's going to act as a shield for half of those enemies right there. And it's just a really sad state. Korra being here is pretty much just a PSA to DE. Just fucking quit doing that shit to our favorite Warframes. Please. I hope that I've been clear in my intentions of making this tier list. Again, the exact spots are not set in stone. If Vauban is your favorite Warframe, I'm looking at you, you know who you are. Cool. I don't care. You're not going to convince me that Vauban is a great Warframe, akin to that of Protea, or Mesa, or Octavia, or, Baruch. And you shouldn't try to convince others. That's all, really. That's all it is. Anyways, I'll see y'all out on the star chart. See you later, Tenna.